Hi, it's me, Tracy, your literary companion. Dracula or dinner? Where should we begin? Today we're exploring everything from Gothic classics to magical fantasies, some heartfelt poetry, and even a cookbook that might change your life too. Grab your cozy cup and let's enjoy the very big genre hop that was my reading during the month of November. Just a moment before we talk about books and share our reading from the month, I wanted to say a big heartful thank you to all of the new subscribers. I had no idea that a short video I made 2 weeks ago of me just sharing my love of reading and books, how it would resonate with so many hearts. I am truly humbled that so many of you have come to join me to be part of this little book-loving community within the larger BookTube community. It is a delight to have you here. I'm just so glad that you're here. And whether you have joined yesterday, last week, last month, or many months ago, a year ago, I truly appreciate all the encouragement, engagement, and sharing that we have here. Thank you. Thank you so much. This month was so great for fiction, especially fiction laced with fantasy and a dark, suspenseful edge. And this month I also had the great fun of doing a buddy read along with my lovely friend Phillip Hall at A Poet Reads to Write. And we both stepped outside of our individual boxes, our reading comfort zones, and read Stephen King. Thank you so much, Philip, for being my friend and giving me the courage to read something very different to my usual. What if your grumpy old neighbor had a secret and was guarding a portal to another world? That is the premise of Fairy Tale by Stephen King, a dark, emotional fantasy that mixes some elements of classic storybook magic along with King's own signature style creepiness. In Fairy Tale, we meet young Charlie Reed. At 17, he's already faced quite a lot in his young life, losing his mother in a hit-and-run car accident, after which his father becomes lost and spirals into alcoholism for some time. But our Charlie is a good boy, despite circumstances, and he's starting to find some balance in his life again when he meets a mysterious, reclusive man in the neighborhood, Howard Bowditch. He befriends his neighbor, Howard, who is unwell when we meet him, and his elderly dog, Radar, who is also ill and dying. When Howard Bowditch dies, Charlie discovers the huge secret his neighbor has been hiding for some time in the backyard shed. There is a stairway leading to another world, a dying kingdom called Empis. It's a place filled with strange magic, mysterious creatures, and there's a terrible curse and an even more dark and frightening ruler. Flight Killer is his name, who embodies the land's sickness. Charlie becomes a reluctant hero drawn into a rebellion to restore Empis to its faded former glory. Charlie faces mythical and epic trials where he needs to dig really, really deep to find courage and the cleverness to face everything, and ultimately defeats the power of darkness. It's a lovely hero story. He returns home changed, wiser, somehow older, and with the dog Radar too, who is alive. She is saved. It's a story about grief, courage, and growing up with all the heart of a classic fairy tale and the darkness that we expect from Stephen King. This was such a wild ride. I really enjoyed it. I tried some Stephen King long ago when I was a teenager, but couldn't really stay with the horror genre. That really wasn't my cup of tea. But I really enjoyed fairy tale, and I liked its kind of quirkiness at times, along with the very strong main character and his quest. You grow to care about him and what he is doing very much. I also liked how this story almost felt like reading a diary at times, especially in the early part of the book, the early chapters, and that really draws you in, even though it's not set up like a diary. It was just a really well-crafted story. And after this, I would like to try more Stephen King's fantasy-laced fiction. If you like portal fantasies and emotional character arcs and worlds that feel alive, but also a little haunted at the same time, this one is well worth the read. And I thank you again, Phillip, for sharing this reading across the miles along with me. We should do this again sometime. Please go meet Phillip if you haven't already. While I was reading fairy tale, Phillip was reading Stephen King's Misery, and he will have a lot to say about that. I will share Phillip's links in the description box below. Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. This is the sequel to One Dark Window and completes the Shepherd King duology. In a mist-shrouded kingdom called Blunder, dark magic spreads throughout the land, and the only one hope remains: a collection of very powerful artifacts known as the Providence Cards. Our heroine, Elspeth Spindle, carries a harrowing secret. She is infected with a very forbidden form of magic, and somewhere inside of her lives the voice of a monstrous being called the Nightmare. Meanwhile, her ally and her love, Raven Yu, they seek to stop the ancient tyranny of the royal family to which he is connected, and the mysterious creeping mist that threatens the whole land. As the story picks up here in Book 2, Elspeth and Raven must locate the final elusive Providence card, the Twin Alders, to end the kingdom's curse. Their quest takes them beyond familiar borders and into a forest that is laced with mist and peril, where they must trust the Nightmare to guide them. Only he knows the way, and despite his growing resistance to help. Meanwhile, back in their homeland of Blunder, new dangers are emerging. An usurping prince lays further traps to gain his own power, and two side characters from the first book appear with their own unique and very compelling story arcs. All is intertwined with the kingdom's fate in a race to the climax. Allies shift, sacrifices are made, and the Providence cards are reunited, and the Nightmare's true identity and nature is finally revealed. And the deadly ancient magic shrouding the kingdom disappears, just like mist, and a new age for the kingdom emerges. I loved this story so much. I just loved the system of magic in this story, the gothic-laced mystery of it all. There's magic, enigmatic characters, betrayal, redemption, love stories, not the least. Oh, it has been a long time since a fantasy series really held on to me as much as this one did. Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher. This was such a fun read, and this had all the hallmarks of what makes her stories so great. The cozy factor, character-driven fantasy that mixes road trip adventure with quirky humor and a surprising, tender romance. In Sword Heart, we meet Hala, a kind, anxious widow who has spent her whole life serving other people, until she unexpectedly inherits the estate of a wealthy uncle. Her greedy relatives are on her immediately, trying to force her to marry a cousin to take the money. So Hala attempts to flee, and accidentally unlocks the magical ancient sword that's been hanging on her wall all along. Inside the blade is Sarkis, a grumpy, duty-bound warrior who's been magically trapped within the sword for centuries. Every time the sword is drawn, he appears confused, annoyed, and very protective of Halla. The two set off to find legal help for Halla's inheritance problems, traveling to an eccentric rat god priest and stumbling into a variety of magical misadventures, threats, and snares, bureaucratic headaches, and the very awkward situation and realization that they're developing feelings for one another, despite Sarkis's sword curse. This is an incredibly warm and funny fantasy story about reclaiming power and agency over one's life, choosing kindness, and finding love in the most unexpected and magical places. Sword Heart is set in T. Kingfisher's Clockwork Boy's world. There will be a sequel, Dagger Bound, set for release in summer 2026. I will be putting that one on my TBR for sure. Still leaning into the spooky season, I read Dracula by Bram Stoker for the first time. Published in 1897, Dracula is a story that many of us are familiar with, even just a little bit. It is a horror novel told through diaries, letters, newspaper clippings. It feels like a scrapbook sometimes. It begins with Jonathan Harker, an English solicitor who travels to Transylvania to assist a Count Dracula with a real estate purchase. Harker soon realizes that Dracula is a vampire who preys on the living and escapes the castle, barely alive. Dracula then journeys to England, where he begins to spread his vampiric influence, targeting Lucy Westenra, who falls mysteriously ill despite efforts of her friends and Dr. Seward. When Professor Van Helsing discovers the truth that a vampire is draining Lucy, he leads a group of people, including Harker and Mina, Jonathan's wife, to hunt Dracula down. And after Lucy's sad death and transformation, they destroy her undead body and vow to end Dracula's curse. The pursuit leads them back to Transylvania, where Dracula meets his true end, and a kind of peace is finally restored. Blending horror, suspense, and symbolism, Dracula explores Victorian anxieties in an amazing way. Anxieties about sexuality, modern science, superstition, and fear of the unknown, as well as faith. Some very, very big topics. It created many of the vampire myths we still see and read about today, from coffin sleeping entities who fear the sunlight and the need to be brandishing garlic about as a protective measure against vampires. I really loved this. I loved the lush moodiness of this story, the eerie castles and moody, foggy London nights, and the slow build, the creepy suspense all throughout. This is the Gothic masterpiece that started it all, and I can really recommend this for some great autumn reading. My poetry selection this month was also a buddy read, along with my friend Philip. Selected poems by Kenneth Rexroth. This is one of the most representative collections of his work, his poetic work from a very long career of writing, which showcases his wide range of themes, tones, and styles. Kenneth Rexroth was an American poet, essayist, translator, and very much a central founding figure in of the San Francisco Renaissance, which was a poetic movement that would later merge into the Beat Generation with its visual and performing arts and artists with deep philosophical, political, and cross-cultural influences and interests. Selected Poems offers a beautiful mix of some of Rexroth's great work, which blend nature poetry as well as love lyrics, political protest poems, poems laced with mysticism, philosophical reflection, and reflecting on his deep engagement with the natural world, as well as his humanist ethics and a beautiful fusion of Eastern and Western thought. His poems speak of an intimacy of personal experience with a sense of cosmic wonder, a wonder of the world. Rexroth writes about mountains, rivers, and lovers with a quiet intensity and a search for the sacredness in everyday life. He was also deeply engaged with political justice and peace. He was a pacifist, so his poetry carries both tenderness but a strong moral strength. Stylistically, his language is very clear, almost musical, and deeply influenced by Chinese and Japanese verse, very, very calm, direct, and full of vivid imagery. Reading Select Poems feels like listening to someone who's both very completely present in the world, but also looking far beyond, a voice that reminds us how love, nature, and awareness are all deeply connected. I'd like to read for you a poem from Selected Poems by Kenneth Rexroth. And this is poem number 4 in a series of poems entitled On Flower Wreath Hill that was written in 1976. No leaf stirs. I am alone in the midst of 100 empty mountains. Cicadas, locusts, katydids, crickets have fallen still, one after another. Even the wind bells hang motionless. In the blue dusk, widely spaced snowflakes fall in imperfect verticals. Yet under my cabin porch, the thin, clear autumn water rustles softly like fine silk. I just love the imagery in the moment of this poem, the very beautiful nuance. Rexroth had such a great way of bringing the beauty of nature to word, giving word to the wonders of nature and the being at one with nature, inwardly and outwardly. I went on to read more poetry by Kenneth Rexroth. The Orchid Boat. This is a beautiful anthology of classical Chinese poetry by women, translated by Kenneth Rexroth. The collection spans over 1,000 years of Chinese literature featuring poets from the Tang-O and the Song dynasties and beyond into current times, the 20th century. Rexroth's translations highlight the very great clarity and emotional depth, spiritual sensitivity of these women's voices, many of whom who wrote about love, loss, solitude, nature, and the passage of time. The title poem, The Orchid Boat, reflects the quiet elegance that runs throughout the book. Images of rivers, moonlight, falling blossoms, and distant lovers longing for each other. They carry such deep feelings, but with simplicity and yet a boldness about them too. Rexroth captures not just the beauty of the original poems, but also their sense of calm, reflection, and the longing. This anthology offers a really rare and intimate look at women's experiences in ancient China, celebrating their artistry, as well as their inner lives and passions with empathy and a really wonderful lyrical precision. Rexroth was really great with the translation, and reading this felt like such a gift, a pure delight. I'd like to read for you a poem from The Orchid Boat, the anthology of Chinese women poets by Kenneth Rexroth. This particular poem is entitled Thinking of Someone, written by Seung Hoon. For you, I have stored up an ocean of thought, quiet, transparent, bright. Your arms encircle the city of sleep. Off, far off, my beautiful dreams. A lamp shines faintly through a crescent window. It is your name, changed to glad and silver silk, that has wrapped me and entangled me with half a century. An ocean of thoughts, all stored in that quiet city moat. The most beautiful language sounds like beautiful flower petals that fall and clothe my body in dreams. This is by Seung Hoon, who was the pen name of a woman born in Taiwan in 1940. Such a beautiful translation by Kenneth Rexroth from the book The Orchid Boat. For some manga this month, my manga reading was a little bit less than usual. I was not able to borrow everything I would have liked to for the month of November, but I was still able to get hold of a few volumes of some series that I have been reading for many months now, some all year long. And among the good manga reading, I read volume 6 of A Sign of Affection by Sue Morishita. I just love this sweet romance series so much, which also our heroine is deaf. The story does deaf representation so well, and the artwork is just beautiful, so much fun. If you would like to see a bit more about the manga series I read this month, then please go see my latest post. Just click on the post tab on my channel homepage. This month, I'm highlighting just one book that I read as part of my Japanese cultural studies, which I have been working on all throughout the autumn. And for November, my learning module was Shinto, the indigenous beliefs and practices of Japan, which has a very long, unique, and interesting history. For some time, I had been wanting to know more about Shinto, and so I read the book The Kami Way by Sokyo Ono, which offers a really accessible introductory look at Shinto, and it is less a book about religion, more an invitation to see the sacred in the ordinary, which is at the very heart of Shinto. Shinto it's more of a practice than strictly a religion, like most of us would know religion to be. Shinto is not based on rules or doctrines, but is a way of life, a way of being in harmony, a quiet reverence for nature, for purity, for sincerity, kindness. At the heart of it are kami, divine spirits that live within all things, the mountains, the rivers, our ancestors, and even the small moments of daily life. Through rituals, cleansing rituals, gratitude, Shinto teaches us to walk more gently on this earth, to live with makoto, sincerity of heart, and to find balance with the world around us. Shinto moves in step with Buddhism in Japan. The two practices are not in conflict. They they offer a complement to each other and together shape Japan's art, ethics, and sense of beauty. My great takeaway from reading The Kami Way was its gentle reminder that the experience of the divine is never far away. It breathes in the wind, the water, the rain, the rivers, the mountains, the meadows, in us, in kindness and stillness, and is the very rhythms of life itself. Something a little different this time in nonfiction, My Paris Kitchen by David Leibovitz. This book is part memoir, part recipe book, and 100% delicious. Leibovitz is a well-noted American pastry chef and the true founder of what we know today as food blogs. He really invented this genre. He moved to Paris and fell in love with French food, markets, the cafe culture. In My Paris Kitchen, he recounts his adaptation to living in France, French culture, and navigating markets, understanding culture and culinary traditions tied together. He shares his cooking philosophy, always with an emphasis on simplicity, seasonality, and enjoying the process rather than obsessing over details and perfection. The recipes cover everything from classic French dishes like boeuf bourguignon and ratatouille to desserts and beautiful pastries. Many of the recipes reflect his own unique twists on traditional dishes, making them more approachable for most home cooks today. What I love best about this book is actually the storytelling. Each recipe is paired with a story or an anecdote, giving us readers insight into France, food culture, and all of that alongside David Leibovitz's own personal journey. In all, this book celebrates the joys of food, of cooking, eating, and living in Paris. It encourages us readers to explore more of French cuisine in a really relaxed and joyful way. This is a really entertaining book. I've long admired David Leibovitz's blog and his writing style, which is rich with warmth, heart, and humor. In recent years, I confess I don't enjoy cooking as much as I used to. I used to do it all, the cooking, the baking, the making. We even tried growing some of our own food, but but now rather I prefer to read cookbooks like novels. And so reading a book by a great chef is great inspiration, and this book may inspire you too. Well, this month was quite the reading adventure. I hope that your TBR has grown a little bit longer thanks to this video. Drop your picks in the comments below if there is a book that you thought that I was reading this month that you might enjoy as well. And I would really love to hear what you have been reading during November. And you know that I love hearing about your reading too. And if you enjoyed this episode, please like and share. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing so we can share more reading adventures together. And so until next time, I wish you happy reading and I wish you much love and many blessings. I will see you again here very soon.